The November wind cut through the platform like 1,000 tiny knives, and Maya Richardson pulled her thin jacket around her body. She had been wearing the same jacket for 3 winters now, and the zipper barely worked anymore. Her fingers were numb as she clutched the handle of her cleaning supplies bag, waiting for the last train that would take her home after another long shift at the hospital. Maya was 23 years old, but sometimes she felt like she had lived twice that many years. Life had not been kind to her. She grew up in the roughest part of Chicago, raised by her grandmother after her mother disappeared when she was just 7 years old. Her grandmother, Sarah, had done everything she could to keep Maya safe and fed, working multiple jobs until her body gave out. Now it was Maya's turn to be the caretaker. The train station was nearly empty at this hour. It was almost midnight, and most people had already gone home to their warm houses and comfortable beds. Maya worked as a custodian at Memorial Hospital, cleaning rooms and hallways from 6 in the evening until 11 at night. The pay was barely enough to cover rent, food, and her grandmother's medical bills, but she was grateful to have any job at all. As she stood on the platform, she noticed something unusual. There was a man sitting on one of the metal benches, and he was shaking. Not just shivering from the cold, but shaking violently. He wore what looked like an expensive suit, but no coat. His white shirt was soaked through with sweat despite the freezing temperature, and his face was pale, almost gray. Maya's first instinct was to mind her own business. Growing up where she did, she had learned that getting involved in other people's problems usually led to trouble. But something about this man made her pause. Maybe it was the way he was trying so hard to sit up straight even though his body was betraying him. Maybe it was the look of confusion in his eyes, like he didn't understand what was happening to his own body. She watched him for a moment, torn between catching her train and checking on this stranger. The man's hands were gripping the edge of the bench so hard his knuckles had turned white. Then she saw his phone slip from his fingers and clatter onto the concrete platform. That's when Maya made her decision. She walked over to him, her worn-out sneakers making soft sounds against the platform. As she got closer, she could see that he was younger than she first thought, maybe in his early 30s. His dark hair was damp with sweat, and his breathing was shallow and rapid. "Sir, are you okay?" Maya asked softly, kneeling down to pick up his phone. The man tried to focus on her face, but his eyes seemed to have trouble staying steady. I don't know what's happening," he managed to say. His voice was rough, like speaking took all his energy. "Everything is spinning." Maya had seen enough medical emergencies during her time at the hospital to know that this was serious. She might just be a custodian, but she paid attention. She had watched doctors and nurses work, had asked questions when they had time to answer, had learned what different symptoms meant. "Do you have diabetes?" she asked, already suspecting the answer. The man nodded weakly. "Yes, my insulin, I think I forgot." Maya's grandmother had diabetes too. She knew exactly what was happening. This man was experiencing a severe hypoglycemic episode. His blood sugar had dropped dangerously low, and if he didn't get help soon, he could slip into a coma or worse. She quickly opened her bag and pulled out the orange juice she had been saving for her ride home. It was the cheap kind, mostly sugar and water, but right now that's exactly what this man needed. She unscrewed the cap and held it to his lips. "Drink this," she said firmly. "Small sips, it's going to help." The man was too weak to argue. He took a sip, then another. Maya supported his head gently, making sure he didn't choke. She had done this for her grandmother many times before. After a few minutes, she pulled a candy bar from her bag, her dinner for the night, and unwrapped it. "Eat this too," she said, breaking off a piece and putting it in his hand. As the sugar began to work its way into his system, the man's shaking started to slow down. His breathing became more regular, and some color returned to his face. Maya sat down next to him on the bench, keeping a careful eye on his condition. She knew the danger wasn't over yet. She had missed her train, but that didn't matter right now. "Thank you," the man whispered after several minutes. His voice was stronger now. "I thought I was going to die on this platform." "You almost did," Maya said honestly. "What happened? How did you forget your insulin?" The man closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "It was a stupid mistake. I had back-to-back meetings all day, 18 hours straight. I was so focused on closing a deal that I forgot to eat, forgot to check my levels. By the time I realized something was wrong, I was already in trouble." Maya shook her head. "No business deal is worth your life." "You're right," he said, opening his eyes and looking at her properly for the first time. "You're absolutely right, by the way." Maya Richardson, she replied. They sat in silence for a moment, and Maya noticed that was studying her face, her worn jacket, her hospital ID badge that hung around her neck. She felt suddenly self-conscious, aware of how different their worlds must be. His suit probably cost more than she made in 3 months. You work at Memorial? Asked, noticing her badge. Yeah, I'm a custodian there. Night shift, Maya said, not bothering to hide it. She had learned long ago that there was no shame in honest work. How did you know what to do? Asked. Most people would have just called 911 and waited. My grandmother has diabetes. I've dealt with this before, and by the time an ambulance got here, you might have been in real trouble. Sometimes you have to act fast. Maya stood up and looked down the track. Do you feel strong enough to stand? We need to get you somewhere warm and make sure you eat something more substantial. Nodded and slowly pushed himself to his feet. He was taller than Maya had realized, probably over 6 feet. He swayed slightly, and Maya immediately moved to support him, letting him lean on her shoulder despite the fact that he was much bigger than she was. Where's your coat? She asked as they walked slowly toward the station exit. In my car, admitted. At my office building, downtown. I took a cab to a meeting and then decided to take the train back. Thought the fresh air would help me think clearly. Instead, I nearly killed myself. Maya sighed. Rich people did the strangest things. Who takes the train without a coat in November? They made it to the station entrance, where there was a small 24-hour diner across the street. Maya had never eaten there because it was too expensive for her budget, but right now needed real food, and she needed to make sure he was stable before she left him. The diner was warm and bright, and the smell of coffee and bacon filled the air. A tired-looking waitress looked up when they entered, taking its expensive suit and Maya's shabby appearance with barely concealed curiosity. Maya helped into a booth and slid in across from him. Order whatever you want, she said, but make sure it has protein and carbs. Smiled weakly. You're very bossy. I just saved your life, Maya replied. That gives me the right to be bossy for at least the next hour. The waitress came over and ordered a full breakfast, scrambled eggs, bacon, toast, and orange juice. Maya ordered just a coffee, ignoring the way her stomach growled. The candy bar she had given was supposed to be her dinner, and she didn't have money to waste on expensive diner food. Aren't you going to eat? Asked, frowning. I'm not hungry, Maya lied. Looked at her for a long moment, then turned to the waitress. Actually, bring 2 of everything I ordered. I said I'm not hungry, Maya protested. And I said bring 2 of everything, repeated firmly. Consider it payment for saving my life. You can't refuse payment for services rendered. Maya wanted to argue, but the truth was she was starving. She had worked a full shift on nothing but the juice and candy bar, and now those were gone. Fine, she said quietly. Thank you. As they waited for their food, leaned back against the booth and studied Maya with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. She wasn't used to people really looking at her. Most of the time, she felt invisible, just another working person trying to get by. Tell me about yourself, said suddenly, and don't just give me the basic facts, tell me something real. Maya wasn't sure how to respond to that. Why do you care? Because you saved my life, and I want to know who you are, said simply. So Maya told him. She told him about growing up with her grandmother, about watching her mother walk out the door and never come back. She told him about dropping out of community college because she couldn't afford both tuition and her grandmother's medications. She told him about working at the hospital, about how she actually liked her job even though it was hard and didn't pay much, because she felt like she was helping people in her own small way. The food arrived and they both ate in silence for a few minutes. Maya couldn't remember the last time she had eaten a meal this good. The eggs were fluffy, the bacon was crispy, and the toast was buttered perfectly. It was such a simple meal, but to her it felt like a feast. What about you? Maya asked when she had finished half her plate. What do you do that requires 18-hour meetings? Hesitated, and Maya got the feeling he was deciding how much to tell her. I run a company, he said finally. Technologies. We develop software and hardware solutions for businesses. Maya had heard of technologies. Even someone like her who didn't follow business news knew that name. It was one of the biggest tech companies in the world, which meant the man sitting across from her wasn't just successful. He was a billionaire. She put down her fork and stared at him. You're that, the one who started technologies in his college dorm room. Looked uncomfortable. Yes, that's me. Maya didn't know what to say. She had just saved one of the richest men in America with a bottle of cheap orange juice and a candy bar. The whole situation suddenly seemed surreal. Does that change things? Asked quietly. I don't know, Maya said honestly. Should it? Most people treat me differently when they find out who I am, said. They either want something from me, or they're intimidated by me, or they start acting fake. Maya thought about that. I don't want anything from you except maybe for you to be more careful with your health, and I'm not intimidated by money. I've never had any, so it doesn't impress me much. As for being fake, I don't have the energy for that. Life is too short to pretend to be someone you're not. Smiled, and for the first time that night, it was a genuine smile that reached his eyes. You're unusual, Maya Richardson. I'm really not, Maya replied. I'm just tired and honest. Those two things often go together. They finished their meal and insisted on paying for both of them despite Maya's protests. As they prepared to leave, pulled out his phone and made a call. Within minutes, a sleek black car pulled up outside the diner. Let me give you a ride home, said. Maya shook her head. That's not necessary, I can take the train. The train stopped running 20 minutes ago, pointed out. And after what you did for me, the least I can do is make sure you get home safely. Maya wanted to refuse, but she was exhausted, and the thought of walking the 3 miles to her apartment in the freezing cold was not appealing. Okay, she agreed, but just this once. The car was warm and comfortable, with leather seats that Maya sank into gratefully. She gave the driver her address, trying not to notice the way raised his eyebrows when he heard which neighborhood she lived in. It wasn't a good area, but it was what she could afford. As they drove through the city, Maya watched the buildings pass by her window. She saw the bright lights of downtown, the expensive restaurants and shops that she would never be able to afford. Then gradually the neighborhoods changed. The lights became dimmer, the buildings more rundown. They passed by boarded-up stores and groups of people standing on street corners despite the late hour. When they pulled up in front of Maya's apartment building, looked out at the graffiti-covered walls and the broken streetlights with concern. You live here. It's what I can afford, Maya said defensively, reaching for the door handle. Grabbed her wrist gently. Wait, please, take my card. He pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back of it. That's my personal number. If you ever need anything, call me. Maya looked at the card, then I don't need charity. It's not charity, said firmly. It's gratitude. You saved my life tonight, Maya. That's not something I take lightly. Please, just keep the card. You don't have to use it if you don't want to, but I'll feel better knowing you have it. Maya took the card and slipped it into her pocket. Fine, but I probably won't call. That's your choice, said, but the offer stands always. Maya got out of the car and walked toward her building. As she climbed the stairs to her third-floor apartment, she could feel watching her, making sure she got inside safely. It was a strange feeling, being cared about by someone she had just met. When she finally opened the door to her apartment, she found her grandmother asleep in her chair in front of the television. Maya covered her with a blanket and went to her own small bedroom. She pulled out the card and looked at it for a long moment before tucking it into her wallet. She didn't know it then, but that night on the train platform had changed everything. She had just met the man who would transform her life in ways she couldn't even imagine. But for now, she was just exhausted and ready for sleep. Tomorrow she would wake up and go back to work, back to her regular life. 3 days passed, and Maya tried not to think about. She went to work, came home, took care of her grandmother, and repeated the cycle. But sometimes, when she was cleaning the hospital floors late at night, her mind would drift back to that night on the platform. She wondered if was taking better care of himself, if he was eating regularly and checking his blood sugar levels. On the 4th day, something unexpected happened. Maya was in the middle of mopping the 3rd-floor hallway when her supervisor, Mrs., approached her with a confused look on her face. Maya, there's someone here to see you, Mrs. said, glancing back toward the elevator. He says his name is, and he's waiting in the lobby. Do you know who that is? Maya's heart skipped a beat. Yes, I know him. I'll be right there. She quickly put away her mop and bucket, then made her way down to the lobby, wondering what could possibly want. When the elevator doors opened, she saw him standing near the entrance, looking completely out of place in his expensive suit among the hospital staff and visitors. He smiled when he saw her. Hi, Maya. What are you doing here? She asked, walking over to him. She was very aware of how she must look in her cleaning uniform, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup on her tired face. "I wanted to thank you properly," said. He held up a bag from an expensive bakery downtown. "I brought lunch. Do you have a break coming up?" Maya glanced at her watch. "I have 30 minutes in about 10 minutes. "Perfect," said. "Is there somewhere we can sit?" Maya led him to the small outdoor courtyard that the hospital staff used during their breaks. It was cold, but there were heat lamps and covered benches. They sat down and opened the bag, pulling out sandwiches, fruit, and cookies. "You didn't have to do this," Maya said, but she was already reaching for one of the sandwiches. She had packed a peanut butter sandwich for lunch, and this looked much better. "I wanted to," said simply. "I also wanted to apologize for showing up at your work unannounced. I realized after I got here that this might make things awkward for you." "It's fine," Maya said, taking a bite of her sandwich. It was delicious, with fresh vegetables and quality meat. "How did you even know I was working today?" "I called the hospital and asked when your next shift was," admitted. "I hope that's not too creepy." Maya raised an eyebrow. "A little creepy, but I'll allow it since you brought food." They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Maya noticed that looked much better than he had the other night. His color was good, and he seemed energetic and alert. "You're taking better care of yourself," she observed. Nodded. "You scared me straight. I've been eating regular meals, checking my blood sugar every few hours, and I even hired a nutritionist to help me plan my diet better. I realized that night that I've been so focused on building my company that I forgot to take care of the person running it." "Good," Maya said. "Your company won't matter much if you're dead." Laughed. "You're very direct." "Life's too short not to be," Maya replied. She looked at him curiously. "But really, why are you here? You already thanked me. You made sure I got home safe. You don't owe me anything else." He was quiet for a moment, seeming to choose his words carefully. "The truth is, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. Not in a weird way," he added quickly when he saw Maya's expression. "It's just that talking to you that night was the most real conversation I've had in years. Everyone in my life wants something from me, or they're afraid of me, or they're trying to impress me. But you just treated me like a person, like someone who needed help. And I realized I don't have that in my life anymore. Real connections with real people." Maya didn't know what to say to that. She could hear the loneliness in his voice, and it surprised her. She had always thought that rich people had everything they could want, including genuine relationships. "I don't know how to be friends with a billionaire," she said honestly. "And I don't know how to be friends with someone who isn't trying to get something from me," replied. "Maybe we can figure it out together." Maya considered this. Part of her wanted to say no, to keep her life simple and uncomplicated. But another part of her, a part she didn't even know existed, was curious. Seemed lonely, and if she was being honest with herself, so was she. She had but no real friends. Her entire life revolved around work and taking care of her grandmother. "Okay," she said finally. "We can try being friends, but I have rules." Smiled. "Of course you do. What are they?" "First, no giving me money or expensive gifts. If we're going to be friends, it has to be equal, and we both know money makes things unequal. Second, no showing up at my work unless it's an emergency. I need this job, and I don't want people getting the wrong idea. Third, be honest with me. Always. I don't have time or energy for games." "Those are good rules," agreed. "I have one of my own." "What's that?" "Let me spend time with you without you worrying about whether you're taking up my valuable time. I'm a grown man who can manage my own schedule. If I want to have lunch with you, or go for a walk, or just sit and talk, it's because I want to, not because I feel obligated. Deal." Maya thought about it and then nodded. Deal. From that day forward, an unlikely friendship began to form. Would visit Maya during her lunch breaks a few times a week, always bringing food and good conversation. They talked about everything: their childhoods, their dreams, their fears, their views on life. Told her about the pressure of running a company, about the loneliness of being surrounded by people who only saw his money and not him. Maya told him about her mother leaving, about raising herself while her grandmother worked multiple jobs, about her dream of going back to school someday and becoming a nurse. Maya's noticed visits, of course. There was plenty of gossip, but Maya ignored it. She knew the truth: they were just friends, and that was all that mattered. Her supervisor, Mrs., was skeptical at first, but when she saw that Maya's work never suffered and that was always respectful and never stayed longer than her break allowed, she let it go. About a month into their friendship, asked Maya if she would like to have dinner with him somewhere other than the hospital courtyard or the break room. Maya was hesitant at first, worried about crossing some invisible line, but assured her it was just two friends having a meal. They went to a small Italian restaurant in a quiet neighborhood. It wasn't one of the expensive downtown places where probably usually ate. It was cozy and warm, with checkered tablecloths and the smell of garlic and tomatoes in the air. "How did you find this place?" Maya asked as they looked at their menus. "I asked my driver where he takes his wife for their anniversary," said. "I figured if it was good enough for someone celebrating love, it would be good for two friends having dinner." The evening was wonderful. They talked and laughed, sharing stories over pasta and breadsticks. Maya felt herself relaxing in a way she rarely did. She didn't have to pretend to be anything other than who she was. He seemed to genuinely enjoy her company, her opinions, her sense of humor. As they were finishing their meals, phone rang. He glanced at it and frowned. "I'm sorry I have to take this. It's my executive team." "Go ahead," Maya said, waving her hand. She watched as his entire demeanor changed during the call. His voice became sharp and authoritative, his posture straightened, and his eyes grew intense. This was the billionaire CEO, not her friend. When he hung up, he looked tired. "Everything okay?" Maya asked. "Just business," said. "We're in the middle of a major acquisition and there are always complications. Sometimes I wonder if it's all worth it." "Is it?" Maya asked. "Thought about that? I used to think so. I built this company from nothing and I'm proud of what we've accomplished. But lately I've been questioning what I'm sacrificing for it. I work 18-hour days. I barely see my family. I haven't been on a vacation in 5 years. I have billions of dollars, but I don't have time to enjoy any of it." "Then why keep doing it?" Maya asked. It seemed like a simple question to her. "Because I don't know how to stop," admitted. "This company is my identity. Without it, who am I?" Maya reached across the table and put her hand on his. It was a bold move for her, but it felt right. "You're the guy who almost died on a train platform because he forgot to eat. You're the person who tracks down hospital custodians to say thank you. You're my friend. That's who you are, with or without the company." Looked down at her hand on his, and something shifted in his expression. Maya suddenly became very aware of the warmth of his skin, the way her heart was beating a little faster. She pulled her hand back quickly, confused by the feelings that were stirring inside her. "Sorry," she mumbled. "I didn't mean to." "Don't apologize," said softly. "That meant a lot to me, more than you know." The rest of the dinner passed in a comfortable silence, but something had changed between them, something neither of them was quite ready to acknowledge yet. Over the next few weeks, their friendship continued to grow. Introduced Maya to new experiences, things she had only dreamed about. He took her to an art museum on her day off, explaining the paintings with genuine enthusiasm. He brought her books he thought she would enjoy, always remembering the titles she had mentioned wanting to read. He even helped her grandmother get an appointment with one of the best endocrinologists in the city, though he did it so subtly that Maya almost didn't realize he had arranged it. For her part, Maya showed a side of life he had forgotten existed. She took him to her favorite taco truck, where the food was amazing and cost less than $5. She showed him the community garden where she volunteered on Sunday mornings, introducing him to the neighbors who had become her extended family. She taught him how to find joy in simple things, like watching the sunset from a park bench or listening to street musicians play. One cold December evening, about 2 months after they first met, Maya finished her shift at the hospital to find waiting for her in the lobby. This was unusual. He never came this late, and he had never waited for her after work before. "Is everything okay?" she asked, walking over to him. "Everything's fine," said, but he looked nervous. I wanted to ask you something, and I didn't want to wait until tomorrow." "Okay," Maya said slowly. "What is it?" Took a deep breath. "My company is having its annual holiday party next week. It's a big event, very formal, very boring, but I was wondering if you would come with me, as my date." Maya's heart stopped. "Your date?" "Yes," said, meeting her eyes. "I know we said we were just friends, and if that's all you want, I'll respect that. But Maya, somewhere along the way, you became more than a friend to me. I look forward to seeing you every day. I think about you when we're not together. You make me laugh, you challenge me, you make me want to be better. I'm falling for you, and I needed you to know." Maya didn't know what to say. She had been fighting her own growing feelings for weeks, telling herself it was impossible, that they were too different, that it could never work. But hearing him say those words out loud made all her defenses crumble. She said quietly, "I'm a hospital custodian who lives in a rough neighborhood and can barely make ends meet. You're a billionaire who runs a tech empire. How could this possibly work?" "I don't know," admitted, "but I want to find out, don't you?" Maya thought about her life before. It had been simple, predictable, and lonely. In the past 2 months had brought color and excitement and joy into her world. She had tried to deny it, but the truth was she had fallen for him too. Despite all the reasons it shouldn't work, despite all the obstacles in their way, she wanted to try. "Yes," she whispered, "I want to find out too." His face broke into the biggest smile Maya had ever seen. He pulled her into a hug, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around right there in the hospital lobby. Maya laughed, not caring that people were starring, not caring about anything except the way made her feel. When he set her down, they stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, then leaned down and kissed her, soft and gentle, like she was something precious. It was Maya's first kiss in years, and it made her head spin in the best possible way. "So is that a yes to the party?" asked when they finally pulled apart. "That's a yes to the party," Maya confirmed, "but I have nothing to wear to a formal event." "We'll figure it out," promised, "together." The next few days passed in a blur of excitement and anxiety for Maya. She had agreed to attend company holiday party, but as the date approached, she became increasingly nervous. She had never been to anything like this before, a formal event with executives and billionaires and people from a world she didn't understand. Seemed to sense her anxiety. 2 days before the party, he showed up at her apartment for the first time. Maya had been hesitant to let him see where she lived, embarrassed by the small space and worn furniture, but had insisted, saying that if they were going to be in a relationship, he wanted to know every part of her life. When she opened the door, stood there with a garment bag and a gentle smile. Her grandmother Sarah sat in her usual chair, watching them with sharp, intelligent eyes. "So you're the young man who's been bringing my granddaughter home in fancy cars," Sarah said, her voice strong despite her frail appearance. Walked over and offered his hand respectfully. "Yes, ma'am, it's an honor to meet you. Maya talks about you all the time." Sarah studied him for a long moment before shaking his hand. "Sit down, mister, let's talk." Maya watched nervously as sat on their old couch, looking completely comfortable despite the shabby surroundings. Sarah asked him direct questions about his intentions, his background, and his understanding of the challenges they would face. Answered every question honestly, never trying to hide behind his wealth or status. "My granddaughter is the most precious thing in my life," Sarah said finally. "She's been through more hardship than any young woman should have to endure. If you're going to be with her, you better be prepared to treat her like the treasure she is." "I understand, ma'am," said seriously. "And I promise you I will never take Maya for granted. She saved my life, and now she's changed it completely. I know I don't deserve her, but I'm going to spend every day trying to be worthy of her." Sarah nodded slowly, seeming satisfied. "All right then, you have my blessing, but if you hurt her, billionaire or not, you'll have me to answer to." Smiled, "That's more than fair." After their talk, presented Maya with the garment bag. Inside was the most beautiful dress Maya had ever seen. It was deep emerald green, simple and elegant, made from fabric that felt like water between her fingers. "I can't accept this," Maya protested. "We agreed no expensive gifts." "This isn't a gift," said. "Consider it a loaner. The dress is from a designer friend who owed me a favor. After the party, you can give it back if you want. But I wanted you to have something beautiful to wear, something that makes you feel as amazing as you are." Maya ran her fingers over the fabric, torn between her pride and her desire to look appropriate at the party. Finally, she decided to accept it. This wasn't about charity, it was about wanting her to feel comfortable and confident. "Thank you," she said softly. "It's beautiful." The night of the party arrived, and Maya spent hours getting ready. She had borrowed makeup from and watched tutorial videos to learn how to apply it properly. When she finally put on the dress and looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back at her. The dress fit perfectly, highlighting her curves and making her brown skin glow. She had twisted her natural hair into an elegant updo with a few curls framing her face. Arrived to pick her up, looking impossibly handsome in a tailored tuxedo. When Maya opened the door, his eyes widened and his mouth fell open slightly. "You look absolutely stunning," he breathed. "You don't look so bad yourself," Maya replied, feeling her cheeks warm under his gaze. The party was being held at one of the most exclusive hotels downtown. As they pulled up to the entrance, Maya saw photographers and reporters lined up, cameras flashing. Her stomach twisted with nerves. "Are you ready?" asked, taking her hand. "No," Maya admitted, "but let's do it anyway." The moment they stepped out of the car together, cameras went crazy. Maya heard people shouting questions, asking who she was, where she came from, kept a protective arm around her waist, guiding her through the crowd with practiced ease. Inside, the ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting sparkles of light across the room. Tables were decorated with elaborate flower arrangements, and a live orchestra played soft music. The guests were all dressed in expensive designer clothes, dripping with jewelry that probably cost more than Maya's entire apartment building. Maya felt completely out of place, but never left her side. He introduced her to his colleagues and business partners with pride, never apologizing for who she was or trying to hide her background. Some people were polite and welcoming, genuinely interested in getting to know her. Others barely concealed their judgment and surprise. About an hour into the party, Maya excused herself to use the restroom. As she was washing her hands, 3 women walked in. They were all beautiful, wearing designer gowns and carrying expensive handbags. Maya recognized one of them from earlier. She had been introduced as Westbrook, a venture capitalist who worked closely with his company. The women didn't seem to notice Maya at first, or maybe they didn't care if she heard them. "Can you believe brought that cleaning woman as his date?" said, reapplying her lipstick. "What is he thinking?" "Maybe it's some kind of charity thing," another woman suggested. "You know, giving back to the community or whatever." "Or maybe he's having some kind of breakdown," the third woman laughed. "I mean, she's pretty enough, but she's not exactly our kind of people, is she?" Maya felt like she had been slapped. She had known this would happen, had prepared herself for judgment, but hearing it so casually discussed still hurt. She thought about leaving, about telling this was a mistake. But then she remembered her grandmother's words that morning, "You're just as good as anyone in that room, baby. Don't ever forget that." Maya stood up straight, made eye contact within the mirror, and spoke clearly. "I may be a cleaning woman, but at least I have the decency not to talk about people behind their backs, especially when they're standing right in front of me." His face turned red. "I didn't realize you were." "Save it," Maya said, walking toward the door. "And for your information, I'm not charity project. I'm his girlfriend. There's a difference." She walked out with her head held high, but inside she was shaking. When she returned to the ballroom, immediately noticed something was wrong. "What happened?" he asked, concern written across his face. Maya shook her head. "Nothing I can't handle, just some people reminding me that I don't belong here." His jaw tightened. "Who said that to you?" "It doesn't matter," Maya said. "They're right anyway. Look around. Everyone here is rich, powerful, successful. I'm just a girl who cleans hospital rooms. What am I doing here?" Took both of her hands in his. "You're here because you belong with me. I don't care what anyone else thinks. These people, most of them are shallow and superficial. They judge everyone by their bank account and their last name. But you, Maya, you're real, you're kind, strong, compassionate, and incredible. You make me want to be better. That's worth more than all the money in this room." His words helped, but Maya could still feel the judgmental stares, hear the whispered conversations. She made it through the rest of the party by focusing on and ignoring everyone else. But by the end of the night, she was exhausted, not physically but emotionally. On the drive home, Maya was quiet, kept glancing at her, clearly worried. "Talk to me," he said finally. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that this is harder than I expected," Maya admitted. "I knew people would judge us, but experiencing it is different than knowing it will happen. Those women in the bathroom, they looked at me like I was dirt on their expensive shoes. And I'm sure they're not the only ones who feel that way." "I'm sorry," said. "I should have prepared you better. I should have warned you that some people would be cruel." "It's not your fault," Maya said. I need to figure out if I'm strong enough for this. Being with you means constantly being judged, constantly having to prove myself. I don't know if I can do that." Pulled the car over to the side of the road and turned to face her. "Maya, listen to me. I love you. I don't care that you're a hospital custodian. I don't care that you didn't grow up with money. I care that you're smart, funny, caring, and real. I care that when I'm with you, I feel like the best version of myself. But I also understand if this is too much. I won't force you to deal with this kind of judgment just to be with me. Whatever you decide, I'll respect it. Maya looked into his eyes and saw the sincerity there, the vulnerability. One of the most powerful men in the world was sitting in his car telling her that he loved her and was willing to let her go if that's what she needed. In that moment, she realized something important. Love wasn't about finding someone perfect or easy. It was about finding someone worth fighting for. I love you too, she said, the words coming out before she could overthink them. And I'm not giving up, not yet, but we need to do this differently. I can't spend my life trying to fit into your world. We need to find a way to meet in the middle. Relief flooded his face. Anything, tell me what you need and I'll make it happen. Over the next few weeks, they worked on building their relationship in a way that felt more balanced. Spent more time in Maya's neighborhood, getting to know her friends and the community she loved. He volunteered at the community garden, wearing jeans and getting dirt under his fingernails, looking more relaxed and happy than Maya had ever seen him. Maya, for her part, learned to navigate this world with more confidence. She took an online etiquette course to understand formal dinner protocol. She read business news to better understand this work. Not because she wanted to change who she was, but because she wanted to be able to support him in all aspects of his life. They kept their relationship mostly private, avoiding social events when possible and focusing on spending quality time together. Would show up at the hospital with coffee during Maya's breaks. They would take walks through the city at night. They would cook dinner together in his apartment, which Maya found ridiculously large but also strangely empty. One evening, about a month after the holiday party, Maya was at his apartment when his phone rang. She could tell from his expression that something was wrong. "What is it?" she asked when he hung up. "My father said," his voice tight. "He just found out about us. He's flying in tomorrow and wants to meet you." Maya's stomach dropped. She had known this day would come, but she wasn't ready. "What have you told him about me?" "The truth," said. "That you're amazing, that I love you, that you make me happy. But my father he's traditional. He had certain expectations for who I would end up with. Someone from our social circle, probably someone Chinese like us. You need to be prepared for him to be difficult." "How difficult?" Maya asked. Sighed, "Very." The next evening, picked Maya up and drove her to an upscale Chinese restaurant downtown. His father, Richard, was already seated at a private table in the back. He was an older version of same sharp features, same intense eyes, but with silver hair and an expression that could cut glass. "Father, this is Maya Richardson," said, his hand supportive on Maya's back. "Maya, this is my father, Richard." Richard didn't stand or offer his hand. He simply looked Maya up and down, his expression revealing nothing. "Sit." The dinner was one of the most uncomfortable experiences of Maya's life. Richard asked her questions that felt more like an interrogation. Where did she go to school? What did her parents do? What were her career ambitions? Maya answered honestly, refusing to be ashamed of her background. Finally, Richard set down his chopsticks and looked directly at Maya. "Miss Richardson, let me be frank. My son is one of the wealthiest and most influential men in this country. He could have anyone he wants. Why do you think you're suitable for him?" Maya felt tense beside her, but she put a hand on his arm, signaling that she could handle this. "With all due respect, mister, I don't think I'm suitable for based on my bank account or my social status. I think I'm suitable for him because I care about him as a person, not as a billionaire. I think I'm suitable because I challenge him to be better, to think beyond business deals and profit margins. I think I'm suitable because when he was dying on a train platform, I didn't hesitate to help him, even though I was a complete stranger. And most importantly, I think I'm suitable because he loves me and I love him. That should be the only qualification that matters." Richard stared at her for a long moment, then unexpectedly a small smile appeared on his face. "You have spirit, I'll give you that." "Father," said warningly. Richard held up a hand. "I'm not saying I approve. I'm saying she's got more backbone than most of the women you've dated. But backbone isn't enough, Miss Richardson. Being with my son comes with responsibilities, expectations, scrutiny. Are you prepared for that?" "I don't know," Maya said honestly, "but I'm willing to try because it's worth it." Richard looked at his son, then back at Maya. "We'll see," he said finally. "Time will tell if you're really ready for this life." It wasn't approval, but it wasn't total rejection either. As they left the restaurant, pulled Maya close. You were amazing in there. I've never seen anyone stand up to my father like that. Winter turned to spring, and Maya and his relationship continued to deepen despite the obstacles they faced. The media had caught wind of their romance, and suddenly Maya found herself being photographed whenever she left her apartment. Tabloids ran stories with headlines like Billionaire Cinderella and From Mop to Mansion. Some were romantic, painting their love story as a fairy tale. Others were cruel, questioning Maya's motives and suggesting she was a gold digger. Maya tried to ignore the attention, but it was hard. She couldn't walk down the street without worrying that someone was taking her picture. Her at the hospital treated her differently now, some with awe, others with suspicion. Even her neighbors looked at her strangely, like she had become someone they didn't recognize. The only constant in her life was, he remained steadfast in his love and support, shielding her from the worst of the media attention when he could. He hired a security team to keep photographers away from her apartment and her workplace. He held her when she cried from the stress and celebrated with her during the good moments. One Saturday morning in April, Maya woke up in his apartment to find him already dressed and standing by the window, looking out at the city below. There was something different about his posture, a tension she didn't usually see. "What's wrong?" she asked, sitting up in bed. Turned to face her, and she saw he was holding a small velvet box. Her heart stopped. "Nothing's wrong," said, walking over to sit beside her on the bed. "But I need to talk to you about something important." Maya pulled the blanket up around herself, suddenly nervous. "Okay." Took her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "Maya, these past 6 months with you have been the happiest of my life. You've shown me what really matters, what's worth fighting for. You've made me laugh, challenged me to be better, and loved me for who I am, not what I have. I can't imagine my life without you." He opened the velvet box, revealing the most stunning ring Maya had ever seen. It wasn't overly large or flashy, but it was perfect, a simple band with a beautiful diamond that caught the morning light. "Maya Richardson, will you marry me?" Maya stared at the ring, then at her mind racing. She loved him, there was no doubt about that. But marriage, that was permanent binding. It meant fully committing to a life that still felt foreign to her, a life of wealth, scrutiny, and endless social obligations. She started, then stopped. "Can I think about it?" She saw the hurt flash across his face before he carefully masked it. "Of course, take all the time you need." He closed the box and set it on the nightstand, then stood up. "I'm going to make some coffee." Maya watched him leave the room, her heart aching. She knew her hesitation had wounded him, but she couldn't lie. Marriage was a huge step, and she needed to be sure she was ready for everything it would mean. Over the next week, Maya carried the weight of his proposal like a stone in her chest. She talked to her grandmother, who surprisingly told her to follow her heart, whatever that meant. She talked to her closest, who had become a good friend despite the awkwardness at first. "You love him, right?" asked as they sat in the hospital break room during their lunch break. "More than anything," Maya admitted. "And he loves you." "Yes." "Then what's the problem?" asked. Maya struggled to put her fears into words. "What if I'm not strong enough for this life? What if I lose myself trying to fit into his world? What if people never accept me? What if I embarrass him?" Reached across the table and took Maya's hands. "Girl, listen to me. You are one of the strongest people I know. You've survived things that would have broken other people. You've taken care of your grandmother, worked your way through impossible situations, and never given up. If anyone can handle being married to a billionaire, it's you. But more importantly, that man loves you exactly as you are. He's not asking you to change. He's asking you to share your life with him." Those words stayed with Maya. That evening, she asked to take her somewhere special. He drove her to the train platform where they had first met. It was the same cold metal bench, the same dim lighting, the same feeling of isolation despite being in a city of millions. "Why here?" asked as they sat down on the bench together. "Because this is where it all started," Maya said. "This is where I saw you, freezing and shaking, and decided to help. This is where we met as equals, just two people who needed each other. Before the media attention, before your father's judgment, before any of the complications. Just you and me." Nodded slowly, understanding. "I've been scared," Maya continued. "Scared of losing myself, scared of not being good enough, scared of failing you. But sitting here, I remember why we fell in love in the first place. We connected because we saw each other truly, not the labels or the expectations, just the real people underneath." She turned to face him, taking both of his hands in hers. I love you. I love your ambition and your kindness. I love how you make me laugh and how you challenge me to grow. I love that you eat tacos from my favorite food truck and that you volunteer at the community garden even though you have a billion other things you could be doing. I love that you see me, really see me, and love me anyway. Tears were streaming down Maya's face now, but she didn't care. So yes, I will marry you, because you're worth being brave for, because our love is worth fighting for, because I can't imagine my life without you either. Pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. When they finally pulled apart, he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, like it had been made just for her. I promise you, said, his voice thick with emotion. I will spend every day making sure you never regret this decision. I will protect you, support you, and love you through everything. We'll face the challenges together. They sealed their promise with a kiss, right there on the train platform where their story had begun. The engagement announcement made international news. Photos of Maya's ring were analyzed by jewelry experts. Their relationship timeline was dissected by gossip columnists, and everyone had an opinion about whether they would last. Maya tried to ignore it all and focus on planning their wedding. She had decided on something small and intimate, just close friends and family, but even that proved complicated. His father insisted on inviting important business contacts. The media wanted exclusive coverage rights. Everyone seemed to have expectations about what their wedding should be. One evening, about 2 months before the planned wedding date, Maya had a breakdown. She was at his apartment, surrounded by wedding magazines, catering menus, and flower samples. Nothing felt right. Everything felt too big, too expensive, too much. I can't do this, she said, pushing the magazines away. This isn't me, this isn't us. Looked up from his laptop, immediately concerned. What do you mean? All of this, Maya gestured to the planning materials spread across the table. The 500-person guest list, the designer dress that costs more than my car, the elaborate 7-course meal. This isn't what I want. I wanted small and intimate, and it's turned into this massive production. Closed his laptop and came to sit beside her. Then we change it. Tell me what you want and we'll make it happen. I want to get married in the community garden, Maya said, with just our closest friends and family, maybe 30 people total. I want my grandmother to be comfortable, not overwhelmed by crowds. I want to wear a dress I feel like myself in, not some designer creation that costs more than most people's annual salary. I want food from the taco truck and the Caribbean place down the street from my apartment. I want it to feel like us, not like some society wedding. She expected to argue, to point out all the reasons why her vision wasn't practical. Instead, he smiled and kissed her forehead. That sounds perfect, he said. Let's do it exactly like that. But your father, Maya started. We'll have to accept it, finished firmly. This is our wedding, our day, we're doing it our way. So they did. They scaled everything back, sending regrets to most of the massive guest list and keeping only the people who truly mattered to them. Maya found a beautiful but affordable dress at a local boutique. They hired the taco truck and Caribbean restaurant to cater. They decorated the community garden with simple flowers and string lights. His father was not happy about the changes, but Maya stood her ground. This was her wedding, and she wasn't going to start her marriage by compromising on what mattered to her. The night before the wedding, Maya's grandmother called her into her bedroom. Sarah had been getting weaker lately, her diabetes and age catching up with her. But her mind was still sharp, and her eyes still held that penetrating gaze that had guided Maya through her entire life. Sit down, baby, Sarah said, patting the bed beside her. Maya sat, taking her grandmother's frail hand in hers. Tomorrow you're going to marry a good man, Sarah said. And I want you to know how proud I am of you. Not because you're marrying someone rich, but because you've stayed true to yourself through all of this. You could have let the money change you, let the lifestyle turn you into someone else. But you're still my Maya, still the girl who volunteers at the garden and brings me flowers from the market. I learned that from you, Maya said, tears welling up in her eyes. You taught me to never be ashamed of who I am or where I come from. That's right, Sarah said. And I need you to remember something else. Marriage isn't about fancy parties or expensive rings. It's about showing up for each other every day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. You come from different worlds, and that's going to cause problems sometimes. But if you love each other and respect each other, you can work through anything. Maya hugged her grandmother carefully, mindful of how fragile she had become. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, baby. Now go get some sleep. You have a big day tomorrow. The wedding day dawned bright and clear, the kind of perfect spring day that felt like a gift. Maya woke up early, butterflies dancing in her stomach, and two other friends came over to help her get ready, doing her hair and makeup while they laughed and shared stories. When Maya looked at herself in the mirror, she felt beautiful, not because of the dress or the makeup, but because she felt like herself. The dress was elegant but simple, the makeup enhanced her natural features without hiding them, and her hair was styled in a way that honored her natural texture. The community garden had been transformed. String lights hung between the trees, creating a canopy of light. Simple wildflowers decorated the arch where they would exchange vows. Folding chairs were set up for the guests, and the smell of amazing food filled the air. Was already there when Maya arrived with her grandmother. He stood under the arch in a simple suit, and when he saw Maya, his entire face lit up with joy and love. In that moment, surrounded by the people who truly mattered, in a place that represented their shared values, Maya knew she had made the right decision. The ceremony was short and sweet. They wrote their own vows, promising to love each other through good times and bad, to respect each other's differences, and to never forget what brought them together in the first place. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, kissed Maya like she was the only person in the world. The reception was everything Maya had dreamed of. They ate amazing food, danced to music played by local musicians from the neighborhood, and celebrated with the people they loved most. Evan's father seemed to relax a bit, laughing at stories shared by Maya's neighbors. As the sun set and the string lights came on, pulled Maya aside for a quiet moment. "Happy?" he asked, holding her close. "Incredibly happy," Maya confirmed. "This was perfect. Thank you for understanding what I needed." "Thank you for being brave enough to marry me," replied. "I know this hasn't been easy, dealing with all the attention and judgment, but I promise you I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know how loved and valued you are." They kissed as fireflies began to dance in the garden around them, and Maya felt like the first year of marriage brought changes that Maya could never have anticipated. She and moved into a new home together, not one of his massive penthouses, but a comfortable house in a quiet neighborhood that felt more like a real home. It was still much bigger and nicer than anywhere Maya had ever lived, but had been thoughtful in choosing it, making sure it had a guest room on the first floor for her grandmother and a cozy kitchen where they could cook together. Maya had expected to quit her job at the hospital after getting married, but surprised her by encouraging her to keep working if that's what made her happy. She did continue for several months, finding comfort in the familiar routine and the sense of purpose it gave her. But eventually, the media attention at the hospital became too disruptive. Photographers would camp outside, bothering patients and staff. Maya realized she was causing more problems than she was solving. The decision to leave her job was harder than she expected. That work had been a huge part of her identity, a source of pride and accomplishment. Without it, she felt lost for a while, unsure of who she was supposed to be as Mrs. It was her grandmother who helped her find a new direction. One afternoon, as Maya sat with Sarah in the living room, feeling sorry for herself, her grandmother spoke up. "What's really bothering you, baby?" Sarah asked in her direct way. "I don't know who I am anymore," Maya admitted. "I'm not a hospital custodian, I'm not poor anymore, I'm just's wife, and I don't know what that means." "Then figure it out," Sarah said simply. "You've got resources now that you never had before. Money, connections, time. What would you do if you could do anything?" Maya thought about that question for days. What would she do? She thought about her own struggles, about growing up poor and watching her grandmother work herself sick to provide for them. She thought about the community garden and the neighbors who had become her family. She thought about all the people she had met at the hospital who were struggling just like she had struggled. An idea began to form. What if she could use her position, her resources, and her story to help people who were in the situation she used to be in? What if she could create opportunities for people who just needed a chance? She presented the idea to one evening over dinner. "I want to start a foundation," she said. "Something that provides scholarships for people who can't afford college, that helps families with medical bills they can't pay, that supports community programs in neighborhoods. I want to give back to communities like the one I came from." Eyes lit up with excitement. "That's an amazing idea. Tell me more." Over the next several months, Maya threw herself into creating the Richardson Foundation. She learned about nonprofit management, fundraising, and program development, connected her with experts who could help, but he let her lead the project, understanding that this needed to be hers. The foundation launched in the fall, with a mission to provide education and healthcare support to communities. Maya used her own story in their promotional materials, talking openly about growing up poor, about the struggles her grandmother faced, about how a little help at the right time could change someone's entire life. The response was overwhelming. Donations poured in from people inspired by Maya's honesty and genuine desire to help. Applications for scholarships and assistance came from families all over the country. Maya worked tirelessly, reviewing applications, meeting with community leaders, and visiting the neighborhoods they served. She found her purpose again, and with it came a new confidence. She was no longer just wife or the poor girl who married a billionaire. She was Maya Richardson, founder and director of a foundation that was making real difference in people's lives. But success brought its own challenges. As the foundation grew, so did the demands on Maya's time and energy. She was traveling constantly, giving speeches, meeting with donors, overseeing programs, was equally busy with his company, especially as they expanded into new markets. They were both working hard on important things, but they were doing it separately. One night, Maya came home after a long day of meetings to find already asleep on the couch, his laptop still open beside him. She felt a pang of sadness, realizing they had barely seen each other in the past week. When had they stopped making time for each other? She gently woke him up, and they moved to their bedroom. As they lay in the darkness, Maya spoke softly. "We're losing something," she said. "We're so focused on our work that we're forgetting about us." Was quiet for a moment. "I know, I've felt it too. I'm proud of what you're doing with the foundation, Maya. You're changing lives, but I miss you. I miss having lunch together, going for walks, just talking about our days." "I miss that too," Maya admitted. "We need to find a better balance." They made a pact that night. No matter how busy they were, they would have dinner together at least 3 times a week. They would take one weekend a month with no work, no phones, just the two of them. They would prioritize their relationship the way they prioritized everything else that mattered. It wasn't always easy to keep those promises. There were urgent meetings and important calls that threatened to interfere. But they held firm, both understanding that their marriage was the foundation on which everything else in their lives was built. Around their second anniversary, Maya's grandmother's health took a serious turn for the worse. Sarah had been declining slowly for months, but one morning she couldn't get out of bed. The ambulance rushed her to the hospital, and the doctors told Maya what she had been dreading to hear. Sarah's organs were failing. There wasn't much more they could do. Maya spent every possible moment at her grandmother's bedside. Was there too, holding Maya's hand, bringing her food she barely touched, and making sure the hospital staff provided the best care possible. Despite his wealth and influence, he couldn't stop what was happening, and Maya could see how much that frustrated him. One quiet evening, with just Maya and Sarah in the hospital room, her grandmother reached out and took Maya's hand. "I'm ready, baby," Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. "I've lived a good life. I got to see you grow up strong and beautiful. I got to see you find love and purpose. I got to see you become the amazing woman I always knew you would be. That's more than most people get." Tears streamed down Maya's face. "I'm not ready to lose you, Grandma. You're all I have." "That's not true," Sarah said gently. You have your work. You have a whole community of people who love you. And you have all the lessons I taught you, all the love I gave you. That doesn't go away just because I do." Sarah passed away peacefully 3 days later, with Maya and by her side. The funeral was held at the community garden, the same place where Maya had gotten married. It seemed fitting that both the beginning of their life together and the end of Sarah's life would be celebrated in that same spot. The grief was overwhelming. Maya had known it was coming, had tried to prepare herself, but nothing could really prepare you for losing the person who raised you, who loved you unconditionally, who shaped who you became. For weeks, Maya could barely function. She went through the motions of her daily life, but inside she felt hollow. Was her anchor during that time. He held her when she cried, which was often. He didn't try to fix her grief or rush her through it. He just stayed beside her, steady and patient, reminding her with his presence that she wasn't alone. Slowly, painfully, Maya began to heal. She threw herself back into the foundation's work, finding purpose in helping others the way her grandmother had always helped her. She established a new scholarship program in Sarah's name, specifically for students being raised by their grandparents. It felt right, a way to honor her grandmother's memory by helping others in similar situations. One evening, about 6 months after Sarah's death, Maya was working late in her home office when knocked on the door. "Can I come in?" he asked. "Of course," Maya said, rubbing her tired eyes. Sat down across from her, looking nervous in a way that was unusual for him. "I need to talk to you about something important." Maya's heart skipped a beat. Those words never led anywhere good. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," said quickly. "But I've been thinking a lot lately about what's really important to me, about what I want for our future, and I've made a decision." He took a deep breath before continuing. "I'm stepping down as CEO of Technologies." Maya stared at him in shock. "What? That company is your life. You built it from nothing." "It was my life," corrected. "But it's not anymore. You are. Our future together is. I've spent the past 15 years building a company, working 18-hour days, sacrificing everything for success. And for what? So I can have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, so I can be on magazine covers." He leaned forward, taking her hands in his. "Watching you grieve for your grandmother, seeing how much you regretted not spending more time with her, it made me think about my own life. I don't want to wake up one day and realize I've wasted my years chasing things that don't really matter. I want to spend time with you. I want to have a family with you. I want to help you with the foundation and actually make a difference in people's lives, not just make money." Maya felt tears welling up in her eyes, but this time they were tears of joy, not grief. "Are you sure? I don't want you to regret this." "I've never been more sure of anything," said. "I'm keeping a seat on the board, so I'll still be involved, but I'm handing day-to-day operations over to our COO. She's brilliant, and the company will be in great hands. This way I can focus on what really matters." Maya threw her arms around him, holding him tight. "I love you so much." "I love you too," replied. "And I'm sorry it took me so long to figure out what's really important." With working less, their lives changed dramatically. They had time for the simple things they used to do when they first started dating. They would take long walks through different neighborhoods, exploring the city together. They cooked elaborate meals in their kitchen, often burning things and laughing about it. They traveled not to business conferences or foundation events, but to places they just wanted to see. They also began seriously talking about having children. It was a conversation they had put off for years, both of them too busy and unsure if they were ready. But now, with their lives more balanced and their relationship stronger than ever, it felt like the right time. Maya got pregnant in the spring, 3 years after they had gotten married. The pregnancy was challenging, with morning sickness that lasted well into the second trimester and various complications that kept the doctors concerned. But through it all, was there, attending every appointment, holding her hair back when she was sick, and reminding her that she was strong enough to handle anything. Their daughter, Sarah Grace, was born on a snowy December evening. She had dark hair and Maya's warm brown eyes, and she was the most beautiful thing either of them had ever seen. As Maya held her daughter for the first time, she felt her grandmother's presence, knowing that Sarah would have been so proud. Being parents transformed them in ways they hadn't expected. Who had once been all business became completely smitten with his daughter. He would spend hours just watching her sleep, marveling at her tiny fingers and toes. Maya discovered a fierce protectiveness she didn't know she possessed, along with a bone-deep exhaustion that came from caring for a newborn. The foundation continued to grow, but Maya scaled back her involvement to focus on her family. She hired an excellent executive director to handle day-to-day operations, while she remained involved in strategic decisions and major initiatives. True to his word, became actively involved in the foundation's work, using his business expertise to help them operate more efficiently and reach more people. As their daughter grew from a baby into a toddler, Maya, and made sure to teach her important lessons. They didn't want her to grow up entitled or out of touch with reality. They took her to volunteer at the community garden, where she got dirt under her fingernails and learned where food comes from. They taught her to say thank you to everyone who helped them, from their housekeeper to the grocery store clerk. They made sure she understood that while they had money, not everyone did, and that was why it was so important to be kind and generous. One afternoon, when Sarah was 3 years old, Maya took her daughter to visit the old neighborhood where she had grown up. They walked past the apartment building where Maya had lived with her grandmother, past the corner store where she used to buy penny candy. past the community garden that had become such an important part of her life. "Mommy used to live here," Maya explained to her daughter, who looked around with wide, curious eyes. "It's different from our house," Sarah observed in her childlike way. "Yes, it is," Maya agreed. "Mommy didn't have as much money back then, but you know what? I was happy here too, because happiness doesn't come from having a big house or fancy things. It comes from the people you love and the life you build." That evening, as Maya sat with after putting Sarah to bed, she reflected on how far she had come. From a poor girl cleaning hospital floors to a woman running a foundation that helped thousands of people. From someone who felt invisible to someone whose story inspired others. From lonely and struggling to surrounded by love. "What are you thinking about?" asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "I'm thinking about that night on the train platform," Maya said. "5 years ago, when I saw you freezing and shaking and decided to help. I had no idea that one decision would change my entire life." "I think about that night a lot too," admitted. "I think about what might have happened if you had just walked past me, if you had minded your own business like most people would have. I probably would have ended up in a coma, maybe worse. But you saved me, Maya, and not just that night. You saved me from a life that looked successful on the outside but felt empty on the inside." Maya moved closer to him on the couch, resting her head on his shoulder. "We saved each other. You showed me that I was worth more than I thought I was. You gave me opportunities I never could have dreamed of. You loved me when I couldn't even imagine being loved." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, both thinking about the journey they had been on together. It hadn't been easy. They had faced judgment, overcome obstacles, navigated two very different worlds, and learned how to build a life that honored both of their backgrounds. "Do you ever regret it?" asked quietly. "Marrying me, dealing with all the attention and complications that came with it." Maya thought about that question seriously before answering. "There are moments when it's hard, times when the media attention feels overwhelming or when people judge me based on where I came from. But regret? Never. Because I got you, I got our daughter, I got the chance to help people through the foundation. I got a life I never dreamed possible. How could I regret that?" Kissed the top of her head. "I love you, Maya Richardson." "I love you too." Years continued to pass, and their love story became something more than just a tale of a poor girl meeting a billionaire. It became a story about two people from different worlds who found each other, chose each other, and built a life together based on love, respect, and shared values. It became a story about staying true to yourself even when the world wants you to change. It became a story about using privilege and resources to lift others up rather than just enriching yourself. The Richardson Foundation grew into one of the most respected charitable organizations in the country, known for actually helping people instead of just talking about it. They funded thousands of scholarships, paid millions in medical bills for families who couldn't afford them, supported community programs in neighborhoods, and created real opportunities for people who just needed a chance. Maya became a voice for those who often went unheard. She spoke at conferences and wrote articles about poverty, inequality, and the importance of giving everyone a fair shot at success. She never forgot where she came from, and she used her platform to shine a light on the struggles that so many people faced every day. Found fulfillment he had never experienced in his business career. Working with the foundation, seeing the direct impact of their efforts, meeting the people whose lives were changed by their programs, it gave him a sense of purpose that making billions of dollars never had. He and Maya would often joke that they had both found their true calling, not in boardrooms or corner offices, but in helping others. They had two more children, a son named Richard after his father, who had eventually come to accept and even love Maya, and another daughter they named Grace after Maya's middle name. Their home was filled with laughter, love, and the beautiful chaos that comes with raising 3 children. On the 10th anniversary of the night they met, surprised Maya with a trip back to that train platform. It was late at night, cold just like it had been that first night, and they stood on the same platform where their story had begun. "Do you remember what you said to me that night?" asked, holding Maya close to keep her warm. "I asked if you were okay," Maya recalled, "and you said you didn't know what was happening. And then you saved my life," added, "with cheap orange juice and a candy bar." Maya laughed. It wasn't about the orange juice or the candy bar. It was about seeing someone who needed help and deciding to do something about it. "That's who you are," said, turning to face her. "Someone who sees people who need help and does something about it. You did it for me that night, and you've been doing it for thousands of people ever since through the Foundation. You've made such a difference in this world, Maya. I'm so proud of you." "We've made a difference together," Maya corrected. "This isn't just my story or your story, it's our story, and it's a good one." They kissed on that train platform, 10 years after their first meeting, surrounded by the cold November air and the distant sound of trains arriving and departing. Two people from different worlds, who against all odds had found eternal love. Not because it was easy, not because it was expected, but because they had chosen each other every single day, through every challenge, every joy, every moment. Their story became something people talked about, a modern fairy tale that gave hope to those who thought love across social divides was impossible. But for Maya it was never about being a fairy tale. It was about being real, being honest, being true to themselves and each other. Years from now, when their children were grown and asked them about how they met, Maya would smile and tell them about a cold night on a train platform, about how sometimes the most important moments in life come when you least expect them, about how helping a stranger can change everything, about how real love isn't about money or status or coming from the same background. It's about seeing each other truly, accepting each other completely, and choosing each other repeatedly. And they would tell their children that it all started because a poor black girl saw a billionaire freezing at a train station and decided that his life was worth saving, not knowing that in saving him, she would find herself, find her purpose, and find an eternal love that would transform both of their lives forever as exactly where she was supposed to be. "I was terrified," Maya admitted. As they walked out of the hospital hand in hand, Maya felt like she was living in a dream. She knew there would be challenges ahead. Their relationship would raise eyebrows, create gossip, and face obstacles she couldn't even imagine yet. But for the first time in her life, she felt truly happy, and she was willing to fight for that happiness. Except her life would never be quite regular again.